Hi, it's Geoff Chalmers here from discoverdouble-bass.com, which is the home of online learning for double bass players. And if you are looking to take your playing further, we're here to help you on your journey. So please go and check out the website. We have courses, lessons, and interviews like the one I'm doing today with somebody who's played a really important role in my life. He was a teacher at a really important time, and he had a big impact on my playing. He's also somebody who's done so much in the music world. He's taught so many people, and he has also studied with some of the legends of the jazz and classical world, people such as Charlie Haden and Jeff Berlin on electric bass as well. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Zoltan Dekany. Zoltan, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Thank you. It's great to be here, and thank you. Well, thanks for the introduction as well. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just give you a little bit of the background and maybe just my studies and what brought me to playing bass and to be working in this industry. And,
absolutely.
From the very start, actually, I was quite lucky to have very good teachers. My teacher, I was 16 years old, no, 15 and a half, when I got a double bass. I was really interested in the double bass. A friend of mine actually had one, and I went there and I played a note, and I knew that I had to be a double bass player. So that's how it started. And in my hometown, there was a great classical double bassist who was in the local symphony orchestra, and I studied with him a couple of years. And in those couple of years, he got me ready to go to conservatoire and onto the academy in Budapest and in Szeged, which is another city in Hungary. And in there, I had an amazing teacher called Ilona Vadász meaning hunter in Hungarian. And this lady, she was a phenomenal classical double bassist. I mean, she should have been, had she not lived there, I think she would have been a great well-known player and teacher. She was a great teacher. She was very, very good on the double bass. Anything she did was just intonation, technique, timing, classical rhythm, everything was just amazing. And she was very strict, which was good for us, because we were like 18, 19 and all that. And so she really, really kind of brought us into shape with our technique and all the necessary things you had to do. I mean, I wanted to go to classical college because I knew I was going to be a jazz player. I always wanted to play jazz, but I wanted to have the technique and the grounding, and the foundation that I saw that classical players had, So and to express the music that you're going to play eventually, I thought I need to have that foundation, Not just on the bass, actually. I mean, we had amazing ear training studies for music theory. We had to play piano, so it was a very, very good foundation and a very good background in music,
And you ended up studying at Cal Arts, is that right?
Yes. So I mean, there is
a wonderful institution.
Yeah, it's a great school. I mean, what happened? Just to go back from Cal Arts, I went to Austria, and at that point I had my fill of classical college. I mean, the classical academy, and so I went to Austria, and then I went to Graz, where there is a College of Music and Performing Arts, and it's quite famous in Europe. And the teacher at the time, Wayne Darling, who was the professor there at the time, he's another great bass player, classically trained jazz bass player, and he took me on. So I studied 4 years.
So your first jazz lessons were with Wayne Darling, is that right? I didn't know that, actually. I was literally just checking out his music a couple of days ago, and I shared something on the Facebook page, and he's a wonderful player. This video of him playing with harp. So
Wayne is into a lot of different things. He's done some really great free playing. He's very much into all these different soundscapes and all that. But
so he set you up on the jazz road moving forward with that.
Oh yes, he's a great jazz bass player. Very strong jazz bass player. So basically everything I know in jazz comes from him.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I had a great 4 years there. I worked a lot in Austria and Germany, Italy, France, in Europe towards the end. And I had an American friend who kept talking to me about sending stuff out to the States. And so once I had a piano player and a drummer friend of mine, and we did a little trio thing, and I sent it out to him. He sent it out to all the different places in the States, to all the schools, there was a year when I got about 100 letters from all sorts of colleges in America. It's like, you know, from here, from there, and everywhere. We'd like to have you, but we cost so much, and so much, and so forth. And then CalArts rang, and they said, well, we'd like to have you. And so yeah, that's where I met Charlie Haden and a few other people. There was another teacher there called Derek Oles, or Oleskiewicz.
Okay.
He's a Polish origin. He's been living there for a long time now. Derek is a great bass player. He plays with Pat Metheny. He plays with Peter Erskine. He plays with great people, you know, and he's very humble. He's a great guy. And my studies there were actually, Charlie was the icing on the cake. You know, you would, when he was there, you would go into a room with him and he'd just say, just get a standard ready for next week or for next time, and we'll play. And so I'd play the melody, play some bass lines, play a bit of soloing, and he would listen and go, and so he would just play the same standard. He knew everything. And even if he didn't know a standard that I brought in, he heard it, and by the second, third chorus, he knew it. You know?
Yeah, those ears.
Yeah, and then he would just show me how he would play over a standard, or over whatever I brought in that day.
Wow,
you know?
that must have been a really incredible time. I mean, Charlie Haden's just somebody who's had such a big impact on, you know, on the world of jazz bass. Is there anything that you can remember that you practiced with him? Was it mostly playing over standards? Was it soloing? Was it technique? Was there any technique in there?
There was no technique.
Yeah,
there was no technique
at that
involved.
stage. It's more about artistry, I guess.
I think I was lucky to be there at the right time for me.
Yeah.
You know, because Charlie wasn't somebody that was going to say, okay, this is the G minor scale.
Yeah.
You know, he was just going to play for you. And so I had my foundations already. So that, to me, all it was is just artistic approach, if I may say something like that. And basically his musicality, his immense musicality. I mean, his ears were just huge. You know, he would play great, very earthy, very well kind of founded ideas, you know, simple ones, but sometimes, but really musical.
Clarity was just
yeah.
Did you ever get to play any of his basses? I'm just thinking, did you?
Yeah.
That must have been pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, we played his bass all the time, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was a Viam, or I'm not sure what it was.
Nice French bass.
Yeah, I think it was an expensive one, and he brought it in. And we were sitting in the corner, and I'm not touching that, and he would say, just come and play. And so we'd play his bass, and it was, I mean, it had a great sound, you know, the E, you know, you'd play an E on that bass, and it would fill the room, you know, you know, just play a little few notes, and you know.
Yeah, I think he says so much with so little in, and one of his favourite recordings of mine is the Beyond Missouri Skies with Pat Metheny, and that's probably my favourite, I think. But are there any particular Charlie Haden records that you really enjoyed over the years? Or?
I listened to his many different phases. Yeah. You know, well, I like everything he did. You know, I mean, his sound and his, you know, what he did with Keith Jarrett. You know, the Keith Jarrett quartet.
Oh, that duo album that he did right at the end of.
I think it's Jasmine, either Lament or Jasmine.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure now, but he had two duo albums, one with Keith Jarrett and one with another piano player.
Kenny Barron, maybe?
Yeah. And I think I've been listening to them for a while, you know, both of them.
Kenny Barron.
Yeah, and then there was another one that he did at CalArts, actually. He did it with John, the British piano player, the great piano player, John, I forget his name.
Taylor.
Yes, John Taylor. Yeah, and that's a great album as well. You know, I mean, he would. And I've seen an interview with Pat Metheny, and Pat Metheny said that he just found his way in this duo world. You know, he would go and play duos with people, and it was funny because we would be in his class, and he would come in very excited, and guess what? I'm gonna go and play, you know, do an album with such and such, and who else? No, it's just the two of us, and that happened a lot. You know, you would play with a guitarist, with a piano player. You know, he was a great player. It's such a great, you know the story about him when he was about 2 years old, and he sang the theme song to a radio show that his dad did every week. And I knew it was
a family band.
That's right, and he was about 2 years old, and he sang this melody down the phone, and the melody was full of sixth intervals. So da 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 da, and this little kid, he just sang it all in tune perfectly. And you know. just a sign of your musicality, you know.
Well, it's wonderful that you've been able to take all of that and share it as you move forward. I think it'd be really interesting, Zoltan, to talk about your approach to teaching. So what are some of the kind of common issues that you see with students who come to you? What are you generally working on when you welcome a new student at the college?
I think in most of the cases it's the lack of a consistent background.
Consistency.
You know, consistency. It happens year after year that you get somebody in and you just ask, well, could you play something for me, please? And this kid sits down and plays something like, you know, a very virtuosic Jaco Pastorius place or a piece or something like that, and you go, oh my God, what am I going to teach them? And then you say, well, let's play a few scales, and let's just play C major in 2 octaves, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff missing, you know. So I try to fill in the void in everybody's knowledge. So basically, because I had the pleasure of having a very good and a very thorough education, so that's how I know to teach, and that's what I'm trying to give to my students. You know, so you have the elements of music. You know, you have your scales, you have your chords, the way they fit together, and you have the rhythm. You know, and you have all of that stuff you need to know to then be able to make music. Mm-hmm. So I have a system that I worked out now that I've got the 3 years all written out that this is what you do in first year, and if you can do more, great, then we will do more. But this is, you know, like that's a system that I have, that you have to have this. Second year you have to have this. Third year you have to have this. You know, and it all fits together. You know, I mean, you know this music. You learn the elements of it, and one day you wake up and actually realize that it all fits together, you know. And when you kind of notice that, it's like it becomes quite easy. Well, it's not easy. It's never easy, and we never have enough time to learn everything. But maybe just easier, and things will make sense.
I seem to remember, like, you really had a great way of explaining the fundamentals of both technique, but also harmony as well, and about the sort of making sure that I was able to kind of articulate what the harmony that's on the page, you know, to the listener, and that it had this kind of strength. And I also hear this rhythmic strength in your playing, you know, which is this. Have you done any particular work on rhythm to develop that?
A lot of gigs.
Yeah, is that where that comes from? It sounds like it. When you're playing, I mean, you can hear that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, when I was playing my scales and arpeggios and all that time, once I knew them well, then I put all sorts of rhythmic subdivisions on them. You know, so you would play just whatever C major, and then you just, you know, play in that kind of tempo, really slowly, maybe just a few notes, and then. And then eventually, you know, all of that stuff. So you get your subdivisions into your chords, into your scales. So you put melody and harmony together with rhythm that way. You know, so I've done a lot of that. You know, I'm guilty, Your Honor. Like, you know, and that's really helpful. You know, I highly recommend that to everyone, because rhythmic clarity is so important. Without rhythm, everybody knows that. You know, there's not much. You know, unless it's a freestyle, you know, thing where you can kind of float and play kind of with just a feel, it's good to know what rhythm is and where your place is in that rhythm. And then, you know, that has a lot of manifestations as you in comping versus soloing. You know, in comping you probably want to be in the middle of the beat, you know, not too much ahead. Let the drummers, if they want, go ahead a bit, and then just you're there to keep everything there. But in soloing, you even go much further down, you know, much further back to kind of, you know, pull that rubber band back, you know, time-wise, so you're almost late, you know, but provided that you have good comping. You know.
Another thing that I got from you is the way that you were very clear about everything had to have a purpose that you were playing with in the solo, and that it was a collection of phrases which built and told a story, and you know, at the beginning it makes sense and it builds, and it, rather than just a load of kind of, you know, stuff and unrelated ideas that don't really execute. And I think that clarity I really you know, I really got a lot from your playing in that sense.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I think again that's just knowing your harmony, knowing your chords, your scales, knowing the instrument. You know, on double bass, it's very important that you have a technical foundation. You know where the notes are, and I think all that sort of stuff came from probably a lot of it from Charlie as well. You know, I mean, like I said, I had a very good teacher. I had Wayne Darling before, and he would teach us a lot of that. You know, that you would take a certain set of changes and you see the whole of it, and not just C minor, F7, B flat. You know, so you would step out of that and kind of start to create a longer phrase over all of that. You know, that still reflects the harmony, but moves around as the harmony moves around.
And what about studying with Geoff Berlin? That must have been a real blast. And also, you were teaching at a Players School of Music for a while as well. So while you were in LA. So, what are some of the key takeaways you got maybe from studying with Geoff and also working alongside him as a colleague?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Geoff, in my opinion, is one of the or the most evolved soloist on electric bass. You know, there are people who may be able to play faster than he at this point, but his harmonic knowledge is so deep. You know, his harmony and melody and rhythmic stuff, everything. I think he really should have been something else. I think he should have been a piano player or a saxophone player, because, I mean, that's how he plays. He plays with the depth of soloing name a great saxophone player, and he plays like that, you know. He kind of put, again, I had a lot from Wayne, but then he kind of finished it for me. You know, he talked to me a lot about a lot of extended harmony, you know, a lot about how your upper extensions in a chord fit together and what you can do with them, you know, all of the stuff that actually can make you sound like a professional without transcribing anything. You know, you just listen. I've never actually transcribed a lot. I transcribed one Chick Corea piano solo on 500 miles high, and I think it took me a year and a half. So I thought, okay, that's enough for me. You know, which I did get a lot out of that. But I try to listen to a lot of music, and I listen a lot, and so you get your ideas from that. You don't necessarily have to write everything down. But anyway, so Geoff told me ways to approach chords and play chords in a way where I've never thought of. You know, he would have this one exercise that instead of just playing, let's say, a B flat major, so you just play that B flat major, all you do is very simple, just leave a note out at a time, and so it's B flat, F, D, A, F, B flat, E, D, B flat, D, E, D, A, B flat. Wow. And that already gives you something that, although you're playing the same four notes, but because you're actually putting them out into more into an intervallic kind of character, so to speak, then you can create great bass lines with that kind of playing. You can create great solos. You know, you can just play some little chromatic enclosures and chromatic passing tones around these notes, and all of a sudden you've got great phrases. And when just this one exercise, I played this through all the different basic chords, you know, major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, blah blah, and that was a schooling for me in itself.
Sure. I mean, that single exercise there, as you say, I could imagine we could all be practicing that for years. I mean, that's
you
so
can.
much in that simple idea.
I still do when I have time. I specify a certain chord type and just maybe do 1 or 2 a day and just really kind of go around the fingerboard with it, you know.
So when I was studying with you, Zoltan, it was obviously face-to-face, and you know, I enjoyed our lessons and took them away, and I remember I used to record a lot of them on a mini disc, so I've probably got some that I could dig out somewhere. But you know, there's a lot of different ways to deliver information, and now, of course, the internet wasn't really well established when we were, when you were teaching me. But now it's made such a big difference in both of our lives, and obviously I'm working with Discover Double Bass, and you have Zoltan's Bass Lounge. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about Zoltan's Bass Lounge, the work that you're doing over there, and you know, really how you feel about the education scene at the moment, some of the pros and cons, maybe.
Okay. Well, like you said, before, let's say 10 years ago, we had one type of education. We had face-to-face education, and that's what it was, right? And then now we have face-to-face education and we have online education. I think the online world can be very good, you know, and I'm going to just say a little bit about your website. I mean, Discover Double Bass is a fantastic resource for young people or old people or anybody that wants to study something on the bass. There is a lot of stuff on there from amazing people, and so that's a great thing, you know. For a little while, when it all started, and you know, everybody with the camera started to put lessons on YouTube and tell all sorts of things to people, you know, that was quite nonsensical mostly. I had to fight that for a couple of years, you know, because I would have somebody come into the college and they'd say, well, so-and-so said that the C minor scale is F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. Yeah. And then I had to correct them, and I had to kind of, you know, make them aware that you don't listen to everything that you don't necessarily want to listen to everything that you see on there, you know. So that to me is the point where it wasn't a great thing, you know, because you kind of really had to fight some of those misinformations that some of the people did. I mean, I had one example. A drummer said, "Hey kids, I'm gonna teach you triplets. It's 3 notes," and then he went ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum. Yeah. So he played two semiquavers and a quaver, and I thought, oh dear. So you know, there was a lot of that, but it kind of cleared out, and I think people who want to play music for a profession, they will always go to a college. You know, they will always seek out teachers and go to a college, because that, I think, is the one thing that you can't really do online, because you haven't got facilities, of course. You know, you haven't got practice rooms, you haven't got a recital hall.
Community, you haven't
exactly,
got, you know.
Yeah. Well, you can have a community online as well.
I guess so,
you know, you can, and people can talk to each other, which is great. I think a great thing about the online world is that a lot of people, and I get a lot of emails, and I get very nice people approach me from places where you can't have lessons, you know, and then they'll say, "Oh, I'm really glad to have found you, because I'm here in I don't know, in Bradenton, Florida, and there is nobody here," you know. So, and that's a great thing, you know, and so they can look at your stuff. I've been actually teaching people on Skype that come on Zoltan's Bass Lounge, and so they'll take a program, they'll take one of the courses or a bundle, and actually nowadays I even say, if I'll give you a lesson, I'll give you just a consultation, you know, either before or at the beginning of your when you purchased it, or whenever you want, you know, if you know, just let me know, and we can have an hour and then talk about what you're learning and how you're learning it. And some of those people actually stayed as Skype students with me, you know. So that I think is a positive, and online can be a great resource, you know.
I think you're right. I think questioning the source is always important, but it is wonderful the way that it's been able to connect so many of us, and and it is exciting to be able to you know, to access. I mean, even things like I'm just thinking about the recording of the Ray Brown BBC masterclass that he did that's on YouTube, and you know, before when we were studying, when I was studying with you, so you know, I didn't even know such a thing existed, and if I did, I wouldn't have been able to access it, and you know, it would have been someone would have had it on an old VHS or something, but now anyone can just go and get it, and so it's a wonderful thing. But and I think you know, to wrap up Zoltan, I'd encourage everyone to go and check out Zoltan's Bass Lounge, and you know, I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've taught me over the years. You know, you've been a real inspiration as a teacher, and you know, as a player. So thank you so much for sharing what you do. If you want to learn more from Zoltan, zoltansbasslounge.com. Yeah. Sounds like the one to check out. If you want to learn more about Discover Double Bass, you know where to go. The links are below this video. Thanks for watching. Practice hard, and we'll see you next time.